Hey everybody, in this YouTube review, we're going to talk about relays. So this is an informal educational video in terms of when you would want to actually tie in a relay or use it for doing your wiring. And so we'll talk about examples here, and we'll talk about the 3 reasons why relays are used. And then we'll talk about how that ties into why you would use it for your vehicle. So fundamentally, relays are used to control high power circuits with lower power signals. It helps with electrical isolation, and 3, it can help switch between AC circuitry and DC. But the reason why it's used in your vehicle primarily, the reason why you want to seek it out is to power hydraulic accessories. This would be your light bar. This would be the tow winch. This would be pumps and things of that nature that require higher draw, okay? So those types of accessories are usually tied to a relay. Secondly, it does protect the factory switching. And thirdly, you can tie it to the ignition of a vehicle. So you can have remote starting of your accessories, meaning that the accessory will only turn on when your ignition is turned on, which is what I did for my off-road radio communication, which was something that required, I think, up to 15 amps. And so what I used is a fuse tap from my fuse board on the passenger side, in this case with the Tundra. I used this device and the ACC fuse. So I pulled out the original one and then inserted one here. It's a micro fuse that would fit into this, and then the second one for the use of powering the relay. And that small electrical signal would then get to the relay. Once it would activate the relay, it would power the coil, which would then draw off the battery power and fire up the radio. And so this fuse tap was critical to making my remote power system start. And to do that, I had to use a relay. And I'll show you in this video how I used a relay for my off-road radio system, but relays can be applied for light bars and a ton of other accessories. And so what I find interesting and important is that as we instead build from the outside of our vehicle and add stuff, it's really important to also build from the inside. And that's where I want to spend a lot of time focusing now, is how do we improve our vehicle from the inside rather than just adding things to the outside. And relays are a real important and critical piece to understand if you're going to do any type of wiring. What we're going to do is talk about relays, because look, I realize there's a lack of attention on the wiring segment, so I'm going to dive into that. And there was something on the wiring I didn't like, so this is the perfect opportunity to explain why I used a relay, where I attached it, and what these wires represent. So the white wire is the ground. Before I mentioned that the paint was an issue for getting good ground contact on my radio. Went back, scraped the paint, and we have a solid ground. It's also where the same bolt connects and keeps the relay intact. All right, so this red wire is your power wire, but it's a power wire in the sense that it comes from the battery, goes to this 15 amp fuse, and then it's crimped here, and then it goes right into the relay, because this relay came with wires that weren't attached, right? So I had to attach it there. Now, the important wire that I wanted to focus on that didn't get a lot of attention was the wire that goes to the alternate power source. So this is the ACC wire, or basically where the fuse that attaches to the ACC fuse section. That's this wire. Now, the importance of that is that power runs through that fuse when the vehicle is turned on. That means power is coming through this black line. Okay, I guess it powers up this coil, which then is like a switch and draws power from the battery, which is your red line. When I turn my truck on, this is going to power up the relay. The relay is going to draw power from the battery via this red wire. Power is outputted through this blue wire to my red wire that goes to the radio. From here, I have the ACC wire, and what I call the ACC wire, and my main power wire going through. And then it's hard to it really is hard to see, dude, I get it. But where you see that rubber grommet and wires going into it is where the hole is for where these wires come out. Now, because I didn't like where the wire was coming out underneath here, it was coming up against my brake pedal. So what I want to do is take my ACC wire and run it up a little bit higher and through here, which will then connect through the dash. It doesn't, look dude, it's not that big of a deal. You could pop off the plastic, run it through the dash, and then it's running to the ACC fuse block over here, which I'll show in a second. I'm just gonna take a moment to run this wiring, which has these two 5-amp fuse. So one fuse will create the continuity that is required, and the other fuse will act as the fuse for the power source to the relay. So all I'm gonna do is just snake it very carefully all the way across the dash, okay, and over to the fuse block on the passenger side. All right, so that's what the next video clip will be. Okay, so if we now take a peek under there, the wiring is looking really clean. Everything's tucked out of the way. As we come back up, everything looks good. Wiring is running through the dash. Everything's pushed back in place. I need to just find a spot for the CB to make sure it works. Again, that ACC fuse will power the relay. So upon turning on the truck, and then I could hit the power button here, boom, and we have power. We're good to go. So it worked. Everything looks a lot cleaner and we're good to go.